Hey guys, this is Down Phoenix, and today I wanted to talk about the whole voter ID law thing that Trump's been talking about. You know, of course, having a photo ID in order to vote. Now, one thing that was kind of comical about the whole thing was that he mentioned, oh, you need a ID to buy groceries, which unless you're buying something like alcohol or something like that, no, you really don't. Especially if you're paying with debit, you just use a PIN number. I mean, credit card in some situations maybe, but generally no. You don't need an ID. So that's kind of funny. It's a comical way to show how out of touch he is, which no surprise considering most politicians are out of touch with our real plights, our real lives and whatnot. Most politicians don't go to grocery stores, and if they do, they're like super swank-ass grocery stores that have gold toilets or something like that. But I digress. I didn't want to talk about that part of it. That part's not really important. It's just entertaining. I wanted to talk about the whole proposal on using a photo ID to vote. Now, this kind of proposal I'm kind of mixed on, because I think that on one hand it is a really good idea to ensure identity. It's not like foolproof, it's not like 100%. Somebody that looks similar to you could still get away with it. I get called like a Will Wheaton clone all the time, so if I happen to show up at the poll and say I'm Will Wheaton, and they look at me like, okay, those will be vote as him, you know. But having a photo ID is kind of a good idea to ensure identity, but the problem that I have with it is technically requiring a photo ID, at least in our current way of doing things, would be considered unconstitutional. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed in order to ensure various voting protections for number of people, like minorities and women and so on. You know, there's all kinds of different protections that are built into the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And the one that I'm concerned about is the restrictions on poll taxes. Now, back in the day, like after slavery had ended, you know, after the Civil War and whatnot, black males were technically allowed to vote. However, there was a lot of stipulations that often were thrown in to try to discourage voting from them as much as possible. Essentially, it was a way to ensure that, white populations were still able to have power over them. The Voting Rights Act had passed a system where you can't have a poll tax, which was a popular way to keep them from voting. It also ensured other things like not having a literacy test for voting, which I actually disagree with. I mean, if you can't read, how do you know who you're voting for? Unless, I guess, you have somebody there to interpret it for you, I suppose. I guess that's a thing, but I guess if that's the case, then yeah, I suppose it's fine, technically. But as far as a poll tax, you know, that basically means that you have to pay to vote. What do you have to do for a photo ID, such as a driver's license or state ID? You have to pay for it. You have to pay to get it, you have to pay to renew it, etc. Now, there's some voting IDs that you wouldn't have to pay for, like, I believe a military ID, for example, but you have to be a member of the armed forces, or I guess if you're like a kid of the armed forces. I don't really know the whole stipulation of it, but anyways, that's only going to benefit a small portion of the possible population. Most people are not in the armed forces or anything like that. Then you have to factor in, like you can't use something like a student ID, like from a college. That's just not considered a valid form of ID in most places. It's not considered like a government thing. Then you got passports, which, I mean, yeah, you can use a passport, but those are even more expensive than a driver's license or state ID. So essentially, that's what you would need. And our current system, we have voter IDs, but they don't have any kind of facial identification. It just has like your name, and it has like your district that you're voting on, and all that good shit. You know, it doesn't have anything related to your face. So I'm okay with requiring a photo ID for voting if either we make, at the very least, a non-driver state ID free of charge, so anybody, even a homeless person, can vote. Which I know it's in the very extreme. There's very few people that actually don't have a photo ID, but it's about protecting the minorities' rights. So either that or change the existing voter IDs, which are given out free of charge, to have that facial identification. As long as one of those two things happens, I'm okay with it. I know that there's a lot of people on the left that completely oppose it, and I'm on the left, but I don't completely oppose it. I just want to consider, that it's done in a constitutional manner that ensures that, legal citizens of the United States are able to vote regardless of their income position. So as long as that kind of protection is brought into place, I'm on board. But what do you guys think? You guys have any thoughts on this whole voter ID thing? Do you guys like the way we have it now, where it's kind of a mess? Where, states have all kinds of different regulations of their own? Or, do you think we should have something that's a little more federally protected and federally regulated? I think that kind of makes more sense personally, But, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Until then, down, Phoenix out.